Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm Nathan, as always joined by James and Callum. How you going, guys?
Not bad.
Not bad. So this week we're going to talk about all the movies that had, I guess, a wider release, or we were able to see outside of our MIF experience.
Yeah, since we were away for about 3 weeks from MIF, and then we had 3 weeks of MIF kind of related episodes. During that time, we saw a whole bunch of new release movies that weren't part of MIF that we wanted to talk about but hadn't had a chance to yet. So we're going to do a little catch-up episode.
So the first movie we're going to talk about tonight is probably
the most important movie.
The most important movie, arguably. We saw this before MIF.
We did.
Before
the day before.
Yeah. And it's an Australian horror movie made by what? I haven't got the directors' names.
Danny and Michael Filippo.
But they did YouTube first.
Yeah. So they were. I don't know if you guys ever followed their channel. Their channel was called Raka Raka, and they used to do like crazy stunt videos and like just really crazy stuff. They had one thing where it's like he'd dress up as Ronald McDonald and kill people and run around with a chainsaw, and it's just crazy stuff. And they had like Marvel versus DC and like flying around, and the videos got more and more crazy and over the top, and the stunts got more and more bigger and insane, and the special effects got more and more insane, and they kind of kept trying to outdo themselves.
At some point, the next thing is just to make a movie.
But that's and their videos like kept getting demonetized or taken down because they were just like doing crazy stuff, kept doing it, and they were a huge channel. And then like for a couple of years, they just didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, I see A24 is releasing an Australian horror movie. I'm like, that's interesting.
This is before,
and these guys...
Yeah. Also, this is before... We've been hyping up the Australian movies over the last few weeks in the show, but this is before we knew they were good.
Yeah, this is like last year.
So we went into the movie with a little bit of trepidation.
Yeah, but last year it's just like, oh, this is interesting. The fact that it's got the A24 seal of approval means it's at least
it's going to have some quality to it. Yeah.
And the fact that those...
It's so good to see A24, and I mean, Umbrella is... pretty local.
The Australian,
but it's good to see A24 taking an interest in Australian art.
That's the thing is because if they're interested that it's a seal of quality. You know, even if you don't like it or it's not great, it's like that's worth going to see.
Yeah.
So the fact that this, I'm not sure. I'm just saying this. I think it might be their first Australian, A24's first Australian co-production.
Nothing else comes to mind.
I don't know. Yeah. That's probably wrong, but whatever. But the fact that they had that seal of approval, I was like, oh, interesting.
Yeah.
We like horror movies. We have to see this.
We like A24.
Then on top of that, it's the Raka Raka boys, the twin brothers who used to make silly videos. This is even more interesting. The fact that they went from, like, no offense to YouTube, but they graduated to...
Oh, come on, man.
Movies.
Of course, movies are...
Yeah, I mean, there's more prestigious, whatever.
It's the pinnacle of
the ladder of filmmaking. YouTube is the bottom rung. It is because it's accessible.
Well, I mean, there are some people who are so successful on YouTube that, this doesn't really... it's like... That's its own... And YouTube is its own... ecosystem, and it has its own...
its own challenges. And
it's just like... if you're a YouTuber, that's not...
It's not the same as filmmaking.
It's not lesser because you're on YouTube. It's still a hard thing to do, and there are YouTubers who do great work. But I'm saying, when you graduate to a feature film, and when that feature film is picked up by A24 for distribution, pretty big deal.
It is,
yeah.
Especially in an Australian context.
Yeah. So the Danny and Michael Filippo, they wrote it and they were like, we're shopping it around to, production companies, trying to get it made. And they were going to get it made with a big American studio. But the studio kept giving them notes and kept trying to change things. And, they were like worried it was going to lose its Australianness and was going to lose its uniqueness. Yeah. And they were going to try to Hollywoodize it. And, they would have got a big budget, but it's just like, nah, let's go back to Australia and make it here. So they made it independently. They're from South Australia. So it was shot in South Australia with Australian actors. It's set in Australia. And they made it, and then it like played at some festivals, and then A24 saw it and bought it up for distribution. And so that's even more impressive that A24 didn't fund this movie and get it made. It was funded independently in Australia, made independently in Australia.
That is more impressive.
And then they shopped it around, and A24 was like, we need that.
Yeah, because I would have assumed that
because
it was they purchased a script or something, and then...
Wait, have we said it's called Talk to Me?
No, we haven't.
All right, so the most important movie we're talking about tonight, and one I've been wanting to talk about since we saw it...
we got so excited.
Is the Australian horror movie Talk to Me, which is really good.
Yeah.
We're all horror fans, and we've talked about on the show before, horror movies are a dime a dozen. They just churn them out, and most of them are cheap and bad.
Yeah.
And occasionally you have okay ones, and very occasionally you have like really good ones, and very rarely you have like all-time great horror movies. I'm going to say it right now. Talk to Me is one of the best horror movies in a long time. I don't want to say the last 10 years.
You might get like...
I don't want to say the last 20 years. But
it's an exhaustive list we'd have to comb, but it feels...
I think you get
one... It's an instant classic.
Yeah,
you get one of this quality maybe like once every few years.
Because was it last year we saw like Barbarian and a couple of Smile. It's like we like those movies. Those are great. Yeah. I think Talk to Me is like better.
I'd say it's on the same level as Barbarian myself.
Okay.
But yeah...
I think
it's up at that triple A gold star status.
Yeah, it's just like especially in terms of new horror movies, because we've talked about before. There's no good classic like 80s was like 70s 80s was like that's when you get all your best horror movies, and there's good 21st century horror movies, but
they all try and do something. I feel like that horror movies are made differently now, and they try to do things a little differently.
And also like Smile was good, Barbarian was good, but they felt familiar enough. Whereas Talk to Me, the idea of it was different enough. The conceit, the concept,
more originality.
And also the fact that it was very Australian without
the cringe,
without the culture cringe.
Yeah,
like it was just very impressive, and
it was because it was well written. They didn't have to rely on any tropes. They didn't have to rely on any winks to the audience.
And all the characters were likable and understandable. Understandable in terms of their motivations.
Yeah, all the personal dramas for all the key characters was authentic.
Yeah, and it wasn't forced, and it wasn't it wasn't trying to be Australian. It was just
so
made in Australia. Yeah, and that's why it's translated so well overseas, because it's doing. I think it's doing even better in America than it is here, which is crazy.
Oh, that tracks.
In my opinion, that's where a lot of Aussie quote quotes movies kind of fall apart, because they try to lean a little bit too hard into the it's an Australian.
It stops being become an Aussie movie. It becomes an Orca movie.
Well, no, it's not that. But if you go too hard that way, it limits its appeal more broadly in terms of like its scope, like worldwide.
We've also talked about how like usually when Australian movies come out, it's like, oh okay, like you're not really. Even if it's
also,
good, you're just
again,
kind of like...
not hating, but the money's not here, so it'll be at least an Australian horror movie, and it'll be like shot for like $100.
That's the thing. It's like earlier this year, I watched Run Rabbit Run on Netflix, which is an Australian kind of horror thriller, and that was kind of like, it was okay.
Yeah.
Like I'd probably never watch it again. It was not low budget, but it was just like nothing really intense in the budget. Whereas Talk to Me felt
high budget.
Yeah, it felt Hollywood.
Yeah, it felt very polished.
Yeah.
Without feeling so overly polished like we complain about so many new movies. Everything is so perfect and flat and digital and green screen. No, it felt like a very well made, well constructed, well shot movie.
And it was smartly written. It had some good kind of scary moments, some good horror moments, and the unique thing, you've got that hand. That hand is the centerpiece of the universe.
So I mean,
and that's the identifiable kind of like.
Yeah, it has that icon. It's iconic.
It has that icon in it. Like it has the hand.
Yeah,
you think about the hand.
It has branding.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I remember we talked about how there's no good like slasher villains anymore because you had your Freddy Krueger, you had your Michael Myers, you had your Pinhead, you had your Jason
You got your
Voorhees.
Pennywise.
Now you don't really have that
No,
anymore.
but at least we kind of have the hand.
But
and we
this
know
is-
the hand is
yeah,
a curse.
this has got- yeah, this
It's a
has got a
lament
cool-
configuration, if you will.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
Lemmic, or the
exactly,
you
yeah.
know the Book of the Dead from Evil Dead.
Yeah,
You know,
the
it's
Necromonicon.
it's
Yeah.
like it's the central
Yeah.
MacGuffin, and
Yeah.
also the central themes of the movie revolve around that, and also the mystery of like where it came from, what it
Yeah.
truly is. That's interesting as well. But yeah, I mean, we've kind of rambled on. I got just really excited just to talk
Yeah.
about it because I've been holding it in.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about it off air, but like, finally we get to talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
It's been out for a while, it's over a month, I think. But it's doing well enough that it's still playing in a lot of places. So
Nice.
if you haven't seen it, please go see it. If you like horror movies even just a little bit, this is one to see.
It's
I
all,
think
is it
it's
out
also
on
available
Blu-ray?
digitally.
It's coming out. It might be out on VOD. It's coming out on Blu-ray and 4K soon. I'm not sure if it's
Yeah.
out yet.
Go see it in the theaters.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely worth. I've saw it twice in the theater. If I had time and money, I'd probably go again. Umbrella is doing the Australian release, which is good because we talked about that last week with Bird Eater, where they do a lot of cool physical media editions. So they have released, or are going to release a special edition with like a hand.
We need to email Umbrella and be like, can you sponsor the show, please? And just send us stuff.
Oh, that would be a dream of mine.
We're local boys.
Maybe if we
If
grow.
you're listening, Umbrella Entertainment, hit us up.
Yeah, if we grow and we get noticed, maybe. But yeah, like I'm just really excited because it's such a good movie. And
I just hope they don't shit the bed.
with
with the
so
sequel.
that's the thing is it's
And
doing
or
so
prequel
well.
or-
It's doing
whatever
so
they're doing.
well that they've already greenlit A24's already greenlit a sequel. So,
Yeah.
but I trust the Philippou brothers because apparently, so the movies, if you don't know, basically it's about like group of teenagers, and they find this like porcelain embalmed hand, like a statue of a hand.
Yeah.
And if you hold on to it,
Shake it.
yeah, if you shake the hand, grab onto it, and say, "Talk to me," like you can see spirits
dead,
or
yeah.
ghosts.
Yeah.
And then from there you can get possessed
yeah.
by the ghost, and it's almost like a drug where it feels so good.
There's that saying: if you stare into the void, sometimes the
If you
abyss
stare into the
starts.
abyss
the
long
abyss
enough,
starts
the
yeah.
abyss stares back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the central, I guess,
So,
plot.
and obviously the main character Mia is suffering the loss of the grief and loss of her mother, and so using the hand is a obvious like allegory for any vice, drugs or
Yeah.
alcohol, whatever it may be, to sort of overcome that. And the fact that it has a link to the dead means she could have a potential link to her mother. And of course, like in all horror movies, things go wrong.
Yeah.
But unlike other horror movies, there's no cheap scares. There's some jump scares, but not really. It's not a jump scary movie.
Nah.
And the reason it works is mainly because you care about the characters and they're charismatic, and you care about their relationships. And like we said, the idea of the hand is so interesting and somewhat unique that it's just an interesting idea for a horror movie.
It sets up its own little universe,
Mm.
and it's like we were talking about it after we saw it. We're like, I want to know more. You know what I mean? Like,
Well,
there's an implied history.
That's what I was getting to, is that because of the way it's written and apparently the brothers, all the ghosts you see in the movie have a backstory. All the writing on the hand has meaning and backstory. So they have like a production Bible, like that's not in the movie at all, but they know.
Of the world, yeah.
Yeah, so the world has rules. So it's not just one of those movies where, cosmagic or because demons or whatever. It's just like, no, this is what you can and can't do. And from a filmmaking perspective, this is how the only time we see ghosts is when Mia sees them.
Yeah.
So it's like all from her point of view. So it's like they have a set of rules, and they have a background knowledge of the mythology or whatever of these supernatural things that I trust that the sequel won't just be cash grab because it's doing well, and more like we have so much material, we could make anything.
We'll see. It's going to be the test, right? Because it's going to be interesting because you said that A24 didn't finance this movie. Like, the movie was made before they got involved.
Yeah.
If it's A24's money now for the sequel,
how does that change
or whatever
things?
they're doing, how is that going to change things for the next movie?
I mean, A24 have a good track record.
A24 have a good track record, and you know, one of the reasons the brothers didn't go to another studio was because it's like they were going to take away that uniqueness. They were going to take away that Australianness. And
besides, I think A24 will give them a lot of rope, considering that they're the golden children.
That's what I'm saying. Is I feel like A24 is the studio who's like, we will let you have creative control.
It'll be like Ari Aster. They're just throwing the money and then leave him alone.
Exactly. Like you,
and then you get Bo's Afraid.
We like what you're doing. Do whatever you do, and then you get Bo's Afraid. It's like, what the hell, dude? But okay.
I need to watch that movie.
Oh man, it's depressing.
It's disturbing.
My dad enjoyed it.
You have to be you have to be in the right mindset, I think. Yeah,
Dad loved it.
It is. He's got such awesome taste. Yeah, some awesome taste sometimes. But yeah, I have because they also shot a lot of cell phone, like TikTok, Instagram live footage, so much footage that they actually have a prequel for this movie, like already basically made, all set on screens, like showing the first sort of possession of one of the characters we meet at the beginning of the film. But I was listening to an interview with Danny Filippo, and he was saying, like, I want to release it virally, so it's like it's something you come across, but the videos keep getting taken down because they're quite extreme. He's like, I don't really want to put them on the Blu-ray because it's not the same as just experiencing them. But that would be interesting if that ever comes.
Only ever released on the dark web.
They should just maybe
we have to work for it.
They should just release torrents or something. Like,
the
just
only place to release it is 4chan.
Oh god,
I'm gonna censor that in the podcast. No one needs to go on that website.
We've dropped that before. But yeah, like, it would be interesting to see that, and that's why I kind of trust that the sequel, they have a good idea. And I think also this concept is interesting enough. I don't want them to, because we've talked about before where, like, you want to know things about the background of the hand or whatever, but if they reveal too much,
you don't want to know too much. Yeah.
But I think they definitely could just, another city, another time, another set of characters,
set it in the 70s.
Yeah, whatever, and just be like,
because voodoo and he said it in like the 70s and like
anything,
like a Creole community, or kind of, if
whatever,
it's... actually, no, we speculate that it's voodoo. It might not be voodoo.
That's the thing. That's the thing. It's like, that's what's interesting about it. Is that we never know the origin of the hand, and show they might know the origin, and to show that might be cool. But I think also the mystery is part of the fun.
Like the idea that, obviously magic exists in this universe, but you can presume that there's at least one other hand out there, and maybe
they speculate
even a head.
And
like, you don't know what's out there.
You can say, talk to me, but you have to grip it with your toes.
That's the thing, right? It's like they could just start introducing other body parts, like an eye or whatever. It's like, and this lets you do this, and like.
And then what happens if you get all of them, James?
That might,
then you put them all together.
Then you win your gear.
Yeah.
Put them all together and you get the infinity gauntlet or whatever. Or
the mummy comes alive.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. But they could do a lot. Hopefully they don't run it into the ground and make 75 and they get increasingly cheaper. But also that's kind of the fun of horror movies as well.
Yeah, let's not pretend that...
Talk to me, 8.
Let's not pretend that we're above it.
Yeah. Like that the Friday the 13th box set isn't staring at me until October comes around.
Those movies, the perfect example of just the same quality of just none of these excel at all. But Talk to Me is just a really, really good effective film, not just effective horror movie, but effective film, and it kind of started off a very strong year of Australian films that we saw at MIF, including Late Night with the Devil, Bird Eater, Monolith was okay, and there was another one, wasn't there?
Australian films. Oh man,
There was another one.
obviously it couldn't have been that good.
No, I don't know.
No, it's my memory. It's not the
it's our
quality of
memory.
the film.
We saw a lot of movies during MIF.
And there was also Godless, which was another Australian film at MIF that we didn't get to
we
see.
were there
but
for the premiere.
yeah, we were premiere adjacent. But we will see that. And there was also another one called You're Alone. You Cannot something.
Yeah.
That one we have to see.
Something you something.
Something you something. But yeah, there's a lot of Australian. I mean, there's always a lot of Australian horror movies, but I think this is the first time where we've seen a lot of them in a row, and they've all been good.
Yeah. 100%.
That's fair.
100%.
But yeah, talk to me. Really
Australia's
good.
so hot right now, and I'm not talking about the weather.
That's coming. El Nino confirmed.
Oh no.
Yeah, they reckon it's going to be bushfires
Oh, not again.
and just sustained dry heat.
Yeah.
Climate change isn't real.
Yeah, let's just keep not doing anything about climate change, everyone. What was I saying? Yeah, Sophie Wilde, who plays the main character Mia, she's really good, and she's getting like really big now. She's in a Netflix show coming out soon. Everyone's taking notice of her, so she's going to be a really big deal.
Was it her that was in also like a BBC kind of show, or was it something?
I think she'd done she's done like some Stan originals and maybe a BBC show. But yeah, this is her first, like, people are noticing. It's like she's going to be huge.
It was a good performance.
Yeah. Everyone in the movie was good, but I mean, she was like, everyone's taking notice. And also, the movie was shot really quickly, and, for a certain, lower budget. So the fact that these guys kind of, they started off as kids growing up making silly stunt videos, wrestling videos, and then kind of graduated to YouTube and sort of got more and more sort of...
it's the art of movie magic.
Yeah, but now it's like that experience is on show, even though they're still young guys. And the way they shot this film really quickly...
and cheaply.
Yeah, but it's so well done.
Like the fact is the movie had a budget of like 4.7 million or something like that.
I'm not sure.
I was on the Wikipedia. It said about like 4.5 million Australian dollars.
Well, the fact that they cast Sophie Wilde in the first place, they lost $1 million because the company was like, no, she's an unknown. We want a known so we can sell the movie. And they're like, no, we want Sophie. Yeah. And they're like, well, we got to cut $1 million because... And it paid off. Yeah. They were right. But yeah, it's like they're working on a tight schedule, tight budget, but their YouTube energy and their energy as filmmakers comes through, and it makes such a great film. But not only that, but it's written so well.
Let's hope it's sustained and it's not the kind of thing where they get
beginner's luck.
No, not beginner's luck. But let's just hope now that they get if they get a bigger budget for the next movie. They don't. Well, because there's directors where
they shit the bit. Yeah, it's like too much.
You give them too much money, and
I trust them, and I trust A24. I think they've also been attached to the Street Fighter movie, which will be very interesting because of their background in stunts and fighting and like wrestling. So that could go well, maybe. Probably not, but it's an interesting choice for that movie. It's not just a boring, like, let's get generic studio simp to churn out the CGI crap Street Fighter movie.
We'll see.
Yeah, but very good movie. Definitely check it out. I think the 4K's coming out soon, so I'm going to buy it and watch it again during Spooktober. And I'm really like... A24, like I said, Umbrella released that hand, but it was blank, and you draw it on yourself. I'm like, I don't want that.
And then A24, the movie, damn it.
Yeah, and then A24 released one that it's like a statue of the hand with all the writing on it, and I was about to buy it, even though it was like 110 USD, not including shipping. And I'm trying to be good with money, but I was like hovering over the buy now button. And then I noticed it's like a incense burner, quote unquote. And I'm like, I don't want that crap. Get that out. I'm like, just give me the statue, man. So yeah, that'll be cool if I could one day get that. But yeah, I just really like this movie. I think it's one of the best horror movies of recent memory and of the
100%.
21st century, and just a good Australian.
Please go support this movie.
Yeah. Also, the sound design, holy crap, so brutal, so good. It's also fun. It's got funny moments.
It has funny moments.
Has a kangaroo. Doesn't have any CGI crap in it.
Not that we could notice.
No. But yeah, great makeup effects.
Yeah, all the effects.
And you know,
were
that's
good.
interesting.
Practical effects were good.
That's interesting as well. Is like all their YouTube friends who made the videos with them, they brought them along.
Yeah.
So it's just like, it's not just, these are like,
the rising tide lifts all the boats.
yeah, but they've also the experience they had making videos, making silly videos as kids into YouTube videos, into film, like it all adds up, and they're really great.
Exactly.
The
skills
really,
are transferable.
Yeah. Anyway, it's really good. Go watch it if you haven't seen it.
We'll be right back after this quick break. You are back on the Tuesday review, doing a catch-up episode of everything in between and around Myth that we didn't get a chance to talk about.
Yes.
The next movie on our list is Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. A personal, I was hyped for this. As we are Wes
talked
Anderson
about before.
simps.
Yeah, we're Wes Anderson simps. Wes stands for Wes Anderson.
I'm like, he uses color in a movie a movie landscape that is all just brown and grey.
Yeah,
he uses color, and that is enough for us.
Not just color, but like color with a capital C.
Yeah. Sometimes that's all you need.
Yeah. But I mean, I was like to these guys, I'm like, I don't care if you guys are coming or not. I'm going day one. And so opening day, even though we had a Myth movie, we had Scrapper the same day. We went to see the Asteroid City at Kino. And it's not the best Wes Anderson movie, but it's definitely worth seeing on the big screen for the visuals.
It's still a breath of fresh air. It's still a Wes Anderson movie.
Oh yeah,
it still has everything.
If you like Wes Anderson,
it has his sense of quirky humor.
Yeah.
It has the color. It has like the nice
framing
cinematography,
device.
the framing.
The chapters and framing devices. Yeah, the cast. You know, stacked cast.
Yeah, that's all well and good. The one thing, no spoilers, obviously, but Tom Hanks's character, I look at him and I'm just like, Bill Murray must have been available, because this is like...
It feels like a character Bill Murray would usually play in a Wes Anderson movie. But and Nathan's like, I don't think he was available because Tom Hanks is playing the role.
Like, Tom Hanks is fine.
Yeah.
But like all the character and all the dialogue, I'm just like, this is Bill Murray.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? It was written for Bill.
Yeah.
He just wasn't able to do it.
Yeah, probably.
That's my headcanon.
Yeah. No, it makes sense. But yeah, it was a good movie. I mean, it's set in like the 1950s in the desert and
Los Alamos, near Los Alamos.
I think so. Yeah, and they're like doing nuclear. It's like an army base. They're doing nuclear testing.
And they're hosting kids.
They're hosting like a science fair for like smart kids. And then there's like a UFO and like all the town and the townspeople, all the out of towners and the kids who are there for the fair and the military base, military and the scientists are all like trying to figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And also meanwhile there's a sort of a play, like it's all set inside a play.
It's technically, mild spoilers. It's like it's a movie, but
there's a framing.
It's like a multi-level movie where in reality it's like an audience watching a play.
Yeah.
But the movie is presented in the audience's imagination as a movie.
Sort of,
being acted in the real world, in quotes. It's being acted out as a play.
But so there's like multiple, and there's like framing devices, or like, and there's different chapters, and I think this is, I don't know, this might be the most, I don't know if esoteric is the right word, but it feels more so than some of like all of Wes Anderson's other films. There's more of a philosophical something else going on. Yeah. Like he's definitely trying to say something.
I'd agree with that.
Especially with the layers and there's like weird moments of like characters kind of, you know, breaking the fourth wall and repeating phrases and there's definitely...
What is it? If you
don't fall asleep,
you can never wake up.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, and especially because there's the contact with aliens. It's like there's definitely something in there about communication. Or
is Wes Anderson an experiencer?
Has he talked about that?
I don't know.
We have to look up. If he hasn't talked about that, we have to contact him and ask him about. Come on the show, Wes Anderson, please.
We'll just talk about aliens. We
love you.
We won't mention your movies at all.
But yeah, I think this one more so than his other movies is like I'd have to I think there's something else that I missed. There's a message there.
It is in some ways it's denser.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. At least more esoteric, philosophical, whatever the word I'm looking for is. There's something there's something he's trying to say something about.
I think you're definitely right.
Humanity and communication and art, and I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, I think it needs a few viewings. I think you're definitely right.
I like all of Wes Anderson's movies, and I've seen all of them multiple times, and I own all of them except for French Dispatch because it just came out recently. And obviously Asteroid City is one I'm going to watch again. But yeah, I think this one warrants repeat viewings so you can catch more. Also, even if you have no idea what's going on or whatever, it's just his movies.
It's a good vibe movie.
That's why I said go to see on the big screen, because a friend of mine asked me, is it worth seeing? I said, well, one, I'm biased because I'm a Wes Anderson stan. But two, I'm like, just visually. Wes Anderson. Is that a country? But two, it's just for the color and the film. It's
cinematography.
It's good. It's good. It's worth seeing on the big screen, and the music, and he has funny songs, and all the
music's
big movie
too.
stars. Yeah.
Jarvis Cocker from Pulp is in the little country band.
Okay.
And he wrote some of the music. For
the
movie.
That makes sense.
And he plays. There's that little bluegrass band in the movie.
Yeah. Sue George. Is he Brazilian? Anyway, he's in Steve Life Aquatic. He's in it as well.
Jarvis Cocker's the leader of that band in the movie.
Okay,
and he also wrote the end track.
Okay.
And he did some of the score.
Yeah. So the score, the color, the cinematography,
it's classic Wes Anderson. It's classic Wes Anderson.
The humor, if you like Wes Anderson, you know what you're gonna get, and you're gonna get a lot of it. And
I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. It's not an entry level Wes Anderson.
No. But
if you're a Wes Anderson like we are, you will enjoy it.
Yeah.
But if you're just interested in dipping your toe into the weird waters,
you'd probably like, what the hell is
I'd
this?
start somewhere else.
Yeah. But it's definitely worth checking out. It's just a really good experience. I want to watch it again.
It's a good vibe movie.
Have any of his movies come out in 4K yet?
I don't think so.
He must have approval. It might not come out until he approves the cut, the restoration. Yeah, but because I've got all his movies on DVD, and then I upgraded all to Blu-ray, and now I'm like, crap. Now I'm gonna have to do all 4K. So I'm kind of
waiting a while.
I'm waiting because I didn't buy French Dispatch because it had no special features and it was just Blu-ray, and I'm like, Criterion usually releases his stuff. Maybe one day they'll do a big box set.
A Criterion box set.
I'm going to start saving up now.
It'll cost you like $800 plus import duties.
I'm going to have to start saving up for that now.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh, man. I love him so much. And he's also got that Netflix
Netflix
short
movies. Yeah, he's got
is it
multiple.
A short film?
It is a short film. It's like 20 minutes.
He's got at least 2 coming out on Netflix.
There's a feature he's making.
There's also
soon,
a feature coming out.
But there's a short film coming out
on Netflix
sooner,
in the next
few months
or
like
so.
40 minutes or something. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So excited about that.
That's based off a short book itself or something like that.
Okay.
It's something. Yeah. It's
got Benedict Cumberbatch.
I haven't watched the trailer because I don't really.
Yeah.
I want to go in surprise.
Yeah. I saw the trailer come up and I was like, I'm gonna watch it anyway. Yeah.
I'd rather not know.
Yeah.
Asteroid City again. Go watch it. Another good movie.
Yeah. But we're biased. So.
But we're biased. The next movie on our list tonight is Dracula: Voyage of the Demeter.
Yeah, so this movie is originally called The Last Voyage of the Demeter, which is a better title, and I think overseas it's still known as that. But
the audiences are dum-dums.
But apparently Australian audiences are too dum-dum because they retitled it Dracula: Voyage of the Demeter. I guess so everyone knows it's a Dracula movie. Everyone knows the vampire. I don't know, stupid marketing
I like to think that if they kept the name The Last Voyage of the Demeter, there'd be some dude watching it and be like, hey, that's Dracula.
Probably.
At the end scene, it's like, what?
Yeah. You know what?
That would make for a better experience, though.
Is that a bad thing?
Some dude leaves and he's like, what a rip-off.
If you don't know about the Demeter and like the story of it, and you watch it and then you're like, whoa, like that would be a cool way to...
Yeah.
But yeah, Last Voyage of the Demeter is a better title and is the name of the chapter in the Dracula novel that this film is based off of. So that's an interesting concept. It's taking one chapter from a book and just making a 2-hour film based on that. And it's also like one of the most memorable chapters of Dracula, where Dracula goes from Transylvania in like his coffin or whatever onto like a cargo ship, like a, it's old timey 1800s sail ship to England.
Yeah.
So that the rest of the story can happen. But during the voyage, he wakes up and murders all the crew, and so when the boat arrives in England, it's a ghost ship.
Yeah.
And there's like a chapter in the book about like they find the captain's log, and it's like, ooh, what happened on the ship?
Yeah. Awesome.
And that's a great idea to make that into a feature, into a feature film without all the other Dracula sort of story. It's just a good kind of bottle horror movie, like claustrophobic, like The Thing or something. It's like Alien.
Exactly.
Alien. It's like Alien. And the director is interesting. He made a movie, I think, called... Nathan, can you check who directed I forget his name. I think he's I want to say Norwegian.
The director of this movie?
Finnish? Yeah.
Andre Ovredal?
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But.
Did he do a movie called Troll Hunter?
He did.
Yeah, so that's a really good movie. And I think he's from Norway. I want to say Norway.
He is Norwegian. Yes.
Norwegian, yeah. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. He's now doing a sort of big Hollywood horror movie, whatever. This might be worth seeing. Interesting idea based on one of the all-time great horror characters.
Too
and
bad
novels.
It wasn't made by him. It was made by the studio.
That's the thing. So we like Dracula. We like horror movies. I'm like, I know the director. Let's go. Let's whatever. Look, it's not the worst movie I've seen.
It had David Dalmatian. I mean,
yeah, it had David Desmalchin or Desmalkin that we talked about during Myth, who was in Late Night with the Devil. And the rest of the cast was good too.
Yeah, the cast is good.
And it was just
what we could see of the cast.
Yeah. So one, it had the problem that we complain about a lot, where it's just very flat, very dark digital cinematography, very brown, and it's not like like horror movies obviously supposed to be dark, but this is something we've talked about many times, and I know we repeat ourselves a lot, or I repeat it myself a lot. But it's like you watch a horror movie from the 70s or 80s. Yes, it's dark and shadowy, but you can still see what's going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in the shadows, the shadows are dark, but around the shadows, there are highlights, there are key lights. Like, it's well shot. It's shot in a way, even if it's at night time.
Yeah, you can still see everything that's going on.
Okay, it's movie night time.
Yeah.
It's not...
Yeah,
exactly.
but it's not... They use the lighting to highlight what they want you to see.
Exactly.
And to like to like the key also, parts of the frame.
Yeah, and also the dark, the shadows are still scary because you're like, what's in there?
Yeah.
But you can still see if something comes out of it, you can tell.
Yeah.
If something goes into the shadow, you can tell. And there's still color involved.
Yeah. That's correct.
And we've talked a lot about before, it's like now all movies, not just horror movies, is they're just all digitally flat color graded. So, all the lights and darks look closer together
you can't
than
see
before.
what's going on.
There's no color. People are wearing color, but it's muted and brown. The skin tones are kind of saturated brown and that gold, not even gold, more piss yellow brown. And just like this movie suffers from that, where you're like, you can't see the shadows and you can't see out of the shadows.
So there's no tension.
There's no tension because I'm like, and Dracula's like kind of walking in between. And it's like, but
he's also a CG.
He's all a brown, and there's too much CG
he looks like
in this
Gollum,
movie.
Let's just be honest.
They did a bad...
Dracula's not that scary. Like, what you see in movies is just kind of grey and CG. And
my favourite sort of Dracula...
Nosferatu.
Representation or adaptation is the original Nosferatu, which was technically based on Dracula, but they didn't have the rights, so they just fudged a few things, and he's Nosferatu, he's not Dracula.
And he looks a little worse for wear.
And he's got the long fingernails and the teeth, and he's like bald, and I'm like, that's really cool. And so they used that type of vampire for this version of Dracula. And I'm like, cool. But also what they did is they CGI'd him a good 85% of the time.
Yeah.
And they did this thing to his face where instead of that creepy Nosferatu, they gave him like a weird golem, like big eyes, kind of a weird funny nose, little mouth.
I think he's not like... The thing about Dracula is that he's a beast, but he's also a man, and he swings between them as he needs.
That's another failing of the movie is, even though I just said, it's interesting just to have the kind of ghost monster vampire on a boat,
but he's not really a vampire in this movie. He's more of just a beast.
But that's the thing is like, and it's interesting. It's like you don't have to deal with the other Dracula stuff. You just take that chapter and like what happened on the boat. But then you lose what makes Dracula Dracula, which is he's Count Dracula. He's this guy who lives in this castle.
Spoiler alert for Dracula. You know, he gets off the boat at the end, and he
goes to England.
And then there's that scene at the end where it ties into the larger Dracula story.
Oh yeah, that's bad.
And it's like you see him at the end, but it's still the Nosferatu walking around
London.
He's just got a hat on.
Like
the police wouldn't be beating him to death in their billy clubs. Like, come on, man.
So
he's meant to be charismatic and charming, and
so this is a problem with the movie is that it ends up feeling very Hollywood.
Yeah.
It feels too CGI, too flat digital, too ugly brown. The story, the characters and story are very shallow and boring. Yeah. And I guess it comes back to saying, on the other hand, one hand I was saying it's an interesting just taking that story, that part of the story, that chapter, and expounding on it. On the other hand, it's just like, well, what was good about that chapter was that it was like a mystery. It was just like the ghost ship docks at in England, and there's no one on, everyone's dead. They find the captain's log. It's like, what happened? And that's the fun part of it. Now you just show that and it's just a monster movie where the crew gets killed off one by a monster, a vampire.
Yeah.
And also that vampire is a CGI golem-looking guy who you can't see most of the time because everything's black and grey and brown. And then there's a big action there's a big action scene at the end where they're trying to kill Dracula and they're flying and flipping around and throwing stuff and the ship's on fire. And I'm just like, this is not a horror movie.
No.
There's no tension throughout any of the film.
We were not scared at all.
No. And I mean, we're desensitized to horror movies for the most part. But even, like, there are horror movies where I'm like, it's scary, but I'm like, there's tension. I'm unsettled.
Yeah.
This movie had none of that. Dracula, Voyage of Demeter was just, from start to finish, very flat. Both visually and, tension story-wise.
Yeah.
I feel like this exact same movie made in the 70s or 80s would automatically be much better, even if it was still kind of a boring story.
Yeah. Just the filmmaking would have been better.
The cinematography and the practical effects would be so much better.
100%.
And also, as Callum was saying, the end of this movie feels very studio mandated. Like,
but what if it does well?
But but then Dracula happens because, and I'm just like, and this is also it's the problem with prequels. It's like we know where it's going to end up, and this is like not a prequel, but it's like set in between. It's like in the middle of the Dracula story. So it's just like we already know what happens before and we know what happens after. And if they make a sequel, which is like the rest of Dracula, it's just like, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
So not the worst movie ever, but it's not a particularly... It's disappointing.
It's disappointing. Look, it's been a positive few weeks, but you can skip this one.
And I've seen a lot of people come out and say, oh, it's really good. It's really... And
watch it on streaming if you want.
Look,
if you got nothing better to do.
Look, this is a show based on our opinions, but objectively, this movie fails technically. I would argue in some ways.
No, I agree. Honestly, so
it's not like, oh, this is so cheap and awful, but it's this is kind of an
it's uninspired.
Yeah.
And it's like the most average version of this story you could possibly tell.
Yeah, and the characters are very flat, the cinematography is very flat, the story and tension.
There's not enough tension.
It's just like,
Yeah.
And there's not enough there's not enough practical gore or scares or whatever to keep you invested on that level either.
Again, they can't deter. They don't know where they want to be because it's like
even as Dracula, a horror movie, you're like, oh, there's no good kills in this movie.
Because it's PG-13 because it's got to appeal to the kids.
Was it?
I think so. Was it M here or?
I think it was an R, like an American R. Like I think because there's blood, but it's just there's no memorable.
Oh, it's MA-15 here. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's an R-rated horror movie. So it is but yeah, it's just like.
Why?
There are no memorable moments of when
they
Dracula
wasted that rating, James.
Yeah, it's like, and because like. I guess there's like one bit where his neck is all, and there's some practical, but yeah, there's no memorable kills or no memorable, except for maybe when the guy gets possessed and he's like with the axe, he's going through the door. It's like, here's Johnny, but whatever. So what? Yeah, there are better Dracula adjacent, vampire adjacent movies. So.
Yeah, skip this one, guys. Sorry.
Yeah.
The next one I haven't seen.
Yes, I haven't seen the next one either. Theatre Camp.
Theatre Camp was playing at MIF, but unfortunately we couldn't fit it into our schedule. Luckily it came out recently. It got a sort of wider release. So I was like, I'm going to go see it because this is one I wanted to see at MIF that I didn't get a chance. It's a comedy about a failing kind of kids theatre camp in the Adirondack Mountains in upstate New York, I want to say. And it's basically like we have to put on a great show because we have to make money to save the camp kind of thing.
Yeah.
The story is not important. What's important is it's this really funny, really kind of heartfelt and what's the word I'm looking for?
Comedy or
like when it's like not a passion project, but you can feel they made it out of love.
Yeah, personal. Yeah,
it's like personal. Yeah. And so the kind of writers and directors and like they're also in the movie and they wrote the movie and they direct, and it's like and it's filled with all these hilarious kind of comedic actors. So I feel like there's a lot of improv. And so the whole movie just feels very like we're a family of like funny people who came together to collaborate on this like 90-minute movie. And the story's not important. It's just like, here's all the crazy stuff that happens and all the characters, moments and the interactions and the improv and and the songs are really funny and the kids are really funny. It's just really, really good. I think it's one of the better. We've talked about like they don't really make mainstream comedies anymore.
Comedies are in a hard spot. And they get released to streaming and that's it.
Yeah, and this one wasn't like a wide release where you can go see it at all the mainstream cinemas, but it's like it felt like one of the better comedies I've seen in a while. It's definitely worth checking out. It was really, really funny. The songs are really good. There is a mockumentary element, but it's not a mockumentary movie. There's that part of it. There's like a framing device of like, talking to but it's not, most of it's just normal kind of. So there's a little bit of like, best in show, that kind of, like there's a lot of improv-y, like I feel like a lot of these actors who are really funny, in other projects and stuff, like they're just playing around, and the filmmakers have also been good enough to kind of focus. It's all focused, so it's not just. Sometimes it can get off track, and you're like, this is funny, but like, what are we doing here? It's like a 2.5 hour movie of nothing. It's like just a 90-minute movie. It's really funny. It's like, gotta save the camp. We got to write the show and put on the show. We got to rehearse with the kids, and all the the theater teachers are like self-absorbed and arty-farty kind of theater, and all the kids are theater kids, so they're all flamboyant and running around, and it's just like, and meanwhile the tech bro kind of Logan Paul-esque son of the theater director takes over, and he's just like, yo, what up, it's your boy Troy, and he's like trying to make money out of this, and he has no idea what he's doing. And he's obviously not a theater kid. A theater gentleman. And so there's all this hilarious, and the cast is great, and I just really
awesome, I'll
like
check it out.
Yeah, it's definitely worth watching.
I think it's available on video on demand as well, so
it might be, but definitely worth seeing. It's hilarious.
The last movie we have, to round us out,
is
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I really like this movie. I think
Turtle power. Okay, I'm done.
I like this movie. I think it maintains the kind of the solid-ish run we're having of like animated comic book and
it definitely
sort of adaptations in that vein.
Like when the trailer came out, I was like, visually, it definitely has a strong Spider-Verse, stylistic,
homage.
Yeah, like
it's not
obviously
even homage, it's just a straight. They're trying to make it a straight up like subgenre of animation now. I reckon.
Sort of, yeah, and it's like because most mainstream animation is just your Pixar, your DreamWorks, your kind of typical 3D animation, which looks really nice. But Spider-Verse was one where it's like, oh, it's great to see something that's a bit weirder, a bit stranger, a bit more
originally artistic, not just.
And especially when you talked about with Across the Spider-Verse, the second one, where it's just like, oh, they're really going for it. There's just like solid colors and like really weird, sketchy. And so they don't have a monopoly on it. But I definitely think Mutant Mayhem was just like in like one
they wanted to cash in on
inspired by that, but also it allowed the studio to say you don't just have to do the boring Pixar 3D animation. You can
liberated us back to the art of almost 2D.
So visually, visually it does. Yeah, it's almost 2D. It's like a 2.5.
They're gonna keep evolving until we get to 2D games.
And then we'll be like, thankfully, thank God.
If Disney did a classic hand-drawn 2D animation film and marketed the hell out of it, that would be a big deal. I think now is the time.
Yeah.
They tried to do it with Princess and the Frog like 15 years ago, whereas like but no one was. I think now is the time.
Also, 15 years ago was like the explosion of the 3D, and it was the kind of the wrong moment. Now is the right moment.
Yeah, now it's like people
would appreciate it.
I
more.
think.
But, this movie
Brad Bird doing a 2D anime. Oh man,
this film.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Don't get excited.
Yeah, I'm not getting excited. But visually, like the animation of Ninja Turtles, Mutant Mayhem is really cool. It's got that sketchy, hand-painted, whatever.
I appreciated it.
That's cool. I'm a huge Ninja Turtles fan. I've fallen off in recent years just because there's, the cartoons aren't, up my alley anymore, and I'm getting a bit older. But like I was a huge fan of the animated series in the 90s and the early 2000s.
Everyone was.
Even the 2010s one was pretty good, and I really liked the 2007 animated movie, and I even watched the more recent movie that came out last year, which was pretty unremarkable, but I was just like, Ninja Turtles, I'm going to watch it. So I'm like I love Ninja Turtles. So I think story-wise, you get the Ninja Turtles, you're like, this is fine. But this is not the best Ninja Turtles film, I think.
No,
I think
not from a story perspective.
Yeah, the original 1990 live-action movie is still the best. That movie's dope. I don't care what anyone says. I think the 2007 animated TMNT movie is a bit better. The Turtles Forever animated kind of straight-to-DVD movie is better. But that's not saying Mutant Mayhem isn't good.
It's a visual treat.
It's visually it's good. It's got a cool soundtrack.
Voice acting's pretty good.
I liked they did a thing where the kids who play the Ninja Turtles are actually teenagers, so they all sound like younger. And what they did is they recorded
them watching each other so they can riff on each
They
other.
recorded them all of them in the same booth, which usually when you're voice acting you do it on your own. So it's like someone, you just read the script and you're just like...
But like it really helps this movie because you feel like the kids are a gang. Yeah. They're like, they're a group.
You feel that energy of them bouncing off each other. Yeah. And you feel like when they're excited about something and they're kind of talking over each other. And so I think that helps the movie a lot.
From a technical perspective, it's probably easier filming them all together than trying to edit in. Like, if you get a perfect take of like all the kids doing it right at the one time, rather than doing them one by one and then having to try and fit it together and splice it, I'm like, isn't it just easier to just have the kids do it all together as a group?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I'm not the wear expert.
I guess it's also because with voice acting sometimes it's like you have no choice. It's like one guy's in one country and another guy's schedules. Whereas this is like the let's get them all together and
you can tell it makes it feel
and I like those moments. I think the best thing about this movie is that the turtles feel like teenagers, they feel like brothers, and there's a heavy emphasis on them being like growing up in the sewer and not being accepted by humans and trying to come out to the world. And there's a theme of like accepting yourself and being accepted. And I like that. In terms of the ninja stuff and the science fiction stuff, I don't think it was very good.
That's
we learned
all our ninja skills from watching the TV.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, okay, so the ninja stuff is almost non-existent.
Yeah.
It's just like, Splinter learned self-defense because he's afraid from humans, and they learned it, and now they're ninjas. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
that doesn't make any sense.
It's kind of rushed.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of like, so they literally could have not been ninjas, and this movie would have been the same.
Yeah,
like they could have just been like teens who are going up, like Teenage Mutant Turtles going up against the mutant enemies, and they're just like, because at the end of the day,
Teenage Mutant MMA Turtles.
Well, that would be closer to the ninja like stuff. It's like you still have to, But like, one thing I liked about them. This is a double-edged sword. One thing I liked about the movie is that Shredder wasn't the bad guy again. So, like he is in most of the TNT stuff. So, this time was Superfly and a gang of other mutants. So I like that aspect of it. But I also felt like that even removed it further from the ninja stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like, the ninja stuff is not important to this movie at all. And Splinter is like almost a non-character except as a curmudgeonly old rat dad. He's just a dad who sits in his chair and, watches, reads his books and watches his stories. So I think it could have been stronger on that front. I think character and the kids and the whatever, I'm like, this is fun.
Counterpoint, non-spoilers.
Yeah.
So don't react too much to what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Chris Pine's cameo was awesome.
Okay, yeah. We won't say what that is, but that was funny. I will say, though, most of the humor for me, this might just be me because I'm a grump, fell flat.
There was something on Twitter about that, actually. It's interesting you say that. The movie, like the voice actors are teenage kids.
Yeah.
Also, and a lot of their dialogue is authentically teenage kids.
Also, we're millennials.
That's what I was going to say. So I think there is some of it that we're just aging out of it, so we don't get as much out of it as some of the younger audience.
There's definitely part of that, but I felt like a lot of it was like heavily relied on like pop culture references, which generally, I don't have a problem with, but it just felt like almost every line was like, you look like this guy from this. Yeah. You sound like this guy from this. I remember that time in this movie. And a lot of it felt, because, 15-year-olds, would they even know a lot of those references? I felt like a lot of it felt scripted.
That sounds like studio interference at some level.
It felt more.
We need callbacks. No more callbacks, please.
Yeah, it felt more authentic when they were all talking over each other, and it felt more like they were just improvising. I would like to be a super fly on the wall of the studio and be like, how much of that was scripted? How much of it was improv? Are there more improv-y takes that might be less traditionally funny in not jokes, but are just more like crazy kids saying stupid stuff? Like that would have made it better for me, I think.
That's true.
Overall, like story, character, like it was not as strong as let's say Spider-Verse, for argument's sake. I hate to keep comparing it to that, but
there are very few movies in the genre, so unfortunately, it's always going to come back to that comparison. This new, I should say, it's not such a genre; it's a new wave of animation style.
Yeah, which on the one hand is good because it's like,
but it's more visually. The knee jerk is automatically people are going to say, but Spider-Verse is better.
Yeah,
which is they would have known that going in that's that's like the level they're aiming for.
I feel like that's the only reason this movie got made, or at least got made in the way it got made.
Yeah, that's fair.
Also, because Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg produced it, and so I think they were fans of Ninja Turtles. And
I did like that we got Bebop and Rocksteady though.
Yeah, that was cool.
That was cool.
They didn't do much though.
No,
I guess they did. There was that chase scene with the He-Man meme song.
I was right about to bring that up, and I like that they used the actual version of it, even with the Skeletor bit and the stop. Yeah. He says, "Hey, sir, hey, what is it? What is it? I'm blanking."
And he said,
"Yes, and he said."
I think that's
the whole kind of meme part.
Yeah,
too good.
That was
the perfect use of that song.
Yeah,
15-year-old kids aren't getting that reference. I'll tell you that. That was
yeah. I feel like there were, because the movie's only like 90 something minutes.
Oh yeah, hour and a half.
Yeah, I feel like feel like there are like a moment will happen where it's just like, oh, that feels like Ninja Turtles, and then 10 minutes will go by, and I'm like kind of looking at my watch, and then another Ninja. I'll be like, oh, cool, and then another 10 minutes ago. I felt like there needed to be some sort of better weaving of the characters and the story and the lore and the behind the mythology, whatever. Of the
lore was kind of wasted. Like, let's be real.
And they minor spoilers. There's a Shredder tease at the end, so it's like he'll show up eventually and whatever.
But again, as you said, the whole kind of they did no ninja training and they're down in the sewer because Dad's afraid of humans, and it's kind of just a bit flat, as you said.
And they really breeze past that, and then it's just like...
I did also... The thing that threw me out a little bit, did Seth Rogen do multiple voices, and did he do... I'm pretty sure...
Bebop.
He did Bebop, but also at the end when there's like all the news reporters at the end, I'm pretty sure... don't hold me to this, he did a couple of news anchors...
That wouldn't,
but he didn't change his voice at all. I'm just like, for me, it was a little jarring.
I didn't notice it, but it's not unusual to do more than one voice. But so I mean, if you're a like big Ninja Turtles fan like me, you're gonna see it anyway. But if you're not really...
It's not the worst movie.
Yeah.
Like it's fine.
It's nice to watch for the animation.
I think also if you're like, if you're like our age as well and like you're kind of like not into... A lot of people are like, oh, it's a cartoon, I'm not going to see it. But then you saw Spider-Verse and were like, oh, I'm convinced this is awesome. This is not going to be a movie, I think, that does that.
It doesn't live
those
up to
people.
No.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Like if you're not an animation... If you're older... I'm not into animation anymore, but then you saw Spider-Verse and like, that's awesome. This won't do that.
It looks similar, but it's not anywhere near as
it won't. The character and the stories is not as strong, and it's not as strong overall.
Yeah,
but I mean, it was fine. It didn't insult me as a Ninja Turtles fan.
It's not insulting.
I'm like, I'd probably watch the second one and be like, oh, this is cool. They brought in some other stuff from the comics and whatever.
Who's the hockey guy?
Casey Jones, my favorite. When people ask me, who's your favorite Ninja Turtle, I don't say Donatello. Yeah. I don't say Michelangelo.
Yeah.
I don't say Leonardo or Raphael. I say Casey Mother Effin Jones.
Are they going to bring him into the sequel? I hope so.
He'll show up eventually. Yeah, he's the best.
He's the best.
Honestly, like the early 2000s cartoon version of Ninja Turtles 1 is the best, but his version of Casey Jones, so good, man. I love Ninja Turtles, but this wasn't like oh my god, this is awesome. I was just kind of like, it's all right.
Yeah.
Also, what's interesting is before the movie came out, I found out that Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross did the score, and I'm like, excuse me, what? So I'm like, well, now I have to kind of watch it, don't I?
I didn't notice it being anything.
Most of it's pretty standard.
Yeah, I didn't notice
action movie, animated hero, superhero movie score.
Yeah.
There are a couple of moments where I'm like, that's definitely their piano. You can tell. And then during the credits, I was like listening even harder. I'm like, oh, there's some synthy stuff going here that I'm digging. But overall, it's not. It's not strong enough.
It wasn't a standout.
The Spider-Verse soundtrack score is better, stronger, I think. Even with Reznor and Ross, I was like, you don't get a real... It's not strong enough.
No.
And a lot of the needle drops is just, cool, but like just hip-hop tracks that we've heard before. Not as good as the ones in Spider-Verse either.
Yeah.
I think instead of Jackie Chan, who was fine as Splinter, but not the best Splinter... I think they should have made Splinter black, like a black actor, instead of Asian.
Yeah, that makes sense.
This movie's very New York. Like, I think this is, out of all the Ninja Turtles, this is New York. It's like music, hip hop from New York and this and that. And you got I mean, Ice Cube's West Coast, but you know, he's got
Yeah.
two of the kids who play Ninja Turtles are black kids, and you got Ice Cube, and it's just like, I reckon Splinter would have been better as like a Keith David, like deep voice, you know, like Master or.
No, I agree.
I don't know. I was just because it lends to the New York.
Again, you could have been more New York,
but also it ties in with the whole like he's not really Splinter. He's just an old rat who looked after them and sits in his chair all day. Like Splinter was like a kung fu master.
Yeah,
like he wore like that.
He's the Jedi master.
He's Obi-Wan or he's Yoda. He's got the robe and he's just like do or do not. You know, he's like training them and he's like, you know, and then one of them will get out of line and he's like, remember your training, and you know, that's the stuff I like from Ninja Turtles. The ninja stuff. Yeah,
they failed at that in this one.
That stuff is like almost non-existent. They could have just been Teenage Mutant Turtles, and it would have been this movie should have been called Teenage Mutant Turtles.
Teenage Mutant Street Fighting Turtles.
I guess it was more street fighting. Anyway, that's just me nerding out about like what could have been.
James is overly critical. It's not the worst movie you'll see.
No, it's fine.
It's not what we would like to have lived up to its expectations, considering its competition.
It's not the movie that the property deserves at this point.
Yeah,
I think if they're going to remake it in that style, they could have gone bigger and better. They could have made some different stylistic choices.
I'm glad they didn't do live.
It's good that they made it.
On one hand, I'm glad they didn't do live action because Hollywood cannot do live action Ninja Turtles anymore. I think the last couple of live action movies proved that. But so I think animated is the way to go. But it didn't.
Unless they do something where it's live action, but the actual turtles are animated.
If they if they actually do what they did in the 1990s with the animatronic heads and the rubber suits, but to a 2020s degree of technology and
it could be good.
We've talked about this. They don't do that in movies.
Or just do it the old school way and have like the actual 2D animation in like the real
like Roger Rabbit.
Yeah,
that would be interesting.
No,
that would be too many questions. Too many. Yeah.
All right. Are we done?
Yeah. Sorry, I was nerding out about Ninja Turtles.
That's all right. That's what we're here for.
I'll shut up.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, the Instagram and the threads at Tuesday Review AU.
Keep an eye out. We got lots of PAX news and coverage coming soon.
It's going to be an exciting couple of weeks.
Yeah.
A few weeks away.
Lots going on. Yeah.
Keep an eye on the socials for more updates. We'll be back next week. Adios, cousins.